Something's creeping, it's right outside. So come on in, and don't be shy. We've got ghosts and UFOs. Brace yourself, get ready for the show. Don't be afraid of the dark. The fun's about to start. Nightmares our tales will inspire. Oh, tonight at the Scaredy Campfire. Have you heard tell of a demon next door? Or maybe a cryptid on the lake shore? There's nothing too strange for us here. So if you're ready, stamp out your fear. Don't be afraid of the dark. The fun's about to start. Nightmares our tales will inspire. Tonight at the Scaredy Campfire. Whoa, whoa.
Our first story comes to us from Julia June 96 on Reddit. A big thank you for letting us use your story. My Skunk Ape Vacation Story: How I Got into Cryptids. This happened in 2011. I was maybe 12 or 13 years old, and was with my parents in Florida at a hotel, going to Disney soon for the first time. They wanted to get to Disney early, so we called a cab at around 6 or 7 a.m., since it was a decent drive. I remember being excited to just be in Florida since I live in New York. I watched out the window. The sun was up already, but the roads were very empty and quiet. We were traveling on a highway, with dividers and highway on the other side parallel to us, and past the other side was tons of open green fields and wilderness, which I was looking at. Being from New York, Long Island, I never saw such lush, flat fields of green. All of a sudden, I notice up ahead a tall, huge, dark figure at the edge of the road. It looked like he wanted to cross the highway, but he was stationary as we drove by. My first thought was, is that a billboard or something? Since they have big billboards for ads on the highway. I glanced at it and suddenly got a sharp, intense feeling in my gut, like someone had punched me. I did a double take and stared at it as we drove by. It looked human-shaped, but like a huge, dark mass with thick, almost black fur and a weird-shaped head, and it was definitely alive, and it wasn't human. I remember saying, "Mom, look at that big thing standing there," but she was busy looking at the map and ignored me. I was intrigued, and it was at the back of my mind the entire vacation. When we got home, I started looking into it, learned about Bigfoot and other cryptids, and became obsessed. I saw the Skunk Ape Bigfoot of Florida. It looked exactly like it. My parents don't believe me, but I know what I saw, and it gave me an intense physical reaction that something wasn't right. It was my instincts. Our second story is from on Reddit. Another big thank you for letting us use your story on the show. Me and my sister played the Ouija board today. This is what happened. Hey, this is my sister's account, and she has shared mine and her stories about the paranormal on here before, but I wanted to give my perspective. P.S. Sorry for the long story. LOL. So, to start, ever since I can remember, me and my sister have always loved the idea of the paranormal and scary things. At a very early age is when we started seeing things. We both see things almost daily, and it's terrifying. Nobody else in our family has ever seen anything except for the two of us. I see stuff almost everywhere. My house, family members and friends' houses, school, etc. Sometimes I could see something small, such as something standing in the corner or peeking over a wall. Occasionally, I'll see something walk by, which alarms me, but I don't pay it any attention. Sometimes it's big. I can feel the overwhelming feeling if there is a dark entity in the room I'm in. If I walk into a room and there's something negative lingering inside, I sense it. So does my sister. A lot of times, it's worse. And if I see something and it's extremely scary or shocking, I get the sudden urge to cry or burst out into tears, and I genuinely am not sure why. My sister, on the other hand, does not feel that way and doesn't get as scared of them as me. Now that I gave you an introduction on what exactly I do see, I want to tell you a story that has happened to me today. So, basically, me and my sister decided to sleep over at my grandmother's house this weekend. I've seen extremely disturbing things in her house before, but I won't be saying them in this post. Earlier today, me and my sister were hanging out in the upstairs of my grandmother's house and watching scary videos on YouTube. Me and my sister both sensed something in the room that felt really uneasy to us. I also want to mention my little sister, 2 years old, came into the room for a little bit and started pointing at nothing and was hiding under the blanket, scared of something inside the room. At that point, we only saw a few movements, but nothing too big. When we finished the videos, we decided to play the Ouija board and try to communicate with whatever was in the room with us. When we began, it started off easy by just asking the spirit of their name, age, etc. It started getting scarier, and the thing we were talking to started saying personal family stuff only certain people would know about. My sister asked if there were any spirits residing inside of my grandmother's house since we have seen spirits there multiple times. The planchette moved to yes. So my sister said, "Okay, how many of you are there?" It moved to the number 6, but we found it hard to believe. In the middle of my sister asking questions, I looked over, and behind my sister was what looked like a disfigured face kneeling over behind her. As I stared at that thing, I forgot to mention what I was looking at to my sister. I thought I was just seeing things, so I brushed it off and didn't mention it. The answers started getting more aggressive, and then it abruptly said goodbye, so we ended it off. I started talking about how uneasy I had felt and that I was scared. My sister had an important question she wanted to ask, so she wanted to try and play again to see if we could continue talking to whatever was in there with us. I was shaking and extremely scared, but I agreed anyway. We started with the beginning, and the first word it spelled out was scared. My sister was confused, and she said, "Who is scared? Are you scared?" The planchette went to no, and she again said, "Who's scared?" It then started to spell out my name, and I got an overwhelming feeling and started harshly crying. I was terrified, because how on earth could this spirit or thing know my name? And was also aware that I was scared. It felt like an urging feeling to act that way. We said goodbye, and I was still trembling. My mother called us from downstairs and let us know we were going home. We then left, went into the car and put on a video to watch something since it's a little bit of a long drive. The whole ride home, me and my sister both felt an overwhelming presence surrounding us. We came home and my sister told me I should write about this and post it on here. As I'm typing this, I still feel like something is here with me. I hope you enjoyed my story. Tell me what you think and let me know if you want to hear more. Our third story comes from dthomas028 on Reddit. Thank you for letting us use your story. Skinwalker in Wisconsin. So I recently moved to Wisconsin. Wanted to explore the backcountry 2 falls ago. So I took a trip from the south to Superior, mostly off-road and on fire roads and whatnot. On my second night, I was in the North Woods and it was getting late, so I was on a back road in heavy, heavy forest and decided to find a spot to sleep in my truck. I went down a dirt road, probably 2 miles or so down the dirt road. At this point, it was very dark, roughly 8 p.m., and absolutely no one for miles. I found a trail in the forest and drove about 100 feet into the woods and parked, completely concealed from the dirt road I was just on. I got out to assess the area, but could not see anything as it was completely dark. I got back in the truck and set up for the night. About an hour into watching a movie on my phone, I heard a sound that sounded like a woman screaming. My dog heard it too. I grabbed my pistol, turned on all my lights, and opened the door to see what it was. Mind you, absolutely no one knew that I was out there and was far, far from civilization. I didn't see anyone or hear anyone, so I ducked back into my truck. I was a little freaked, but figured it was wildlife. I don't know. I rationalized it. About an hour later, I was falling asleep and felt my truck move as if someone pushed on it. Again, my dog woke up too, so I knew that it wasn't my imagination. I did not turn on any lights or make a sound, but my dog seemed uneasy. I told myself that if I heard anything else, I would get out of Dodge. Well, I ended up falling asleep, and around midnight, I woke up to my dog growling, and it happened again. I put on my boots and hopped in the driver's seat and got out of there. As I was driving out, I went around a corner on the dirt road, and I'm not sure if it was my imagination or what, but I swear I saw a tall, skinny thing running off the road as I came around the corner. It took about 30 minutes to get down the road because I continued down the original dirt road and did not go back the way I came. By this point, it was raining pretty hard, and I did not feel comfortable being anywhere dark. I drove an hour, finally found a gas station, and ended up staying the night there. I've never been so scared in my life, and it takes a lot to get me feeling that way. I don't know what it was, but I know it was not human, whatever was out there. I know that much. Our fourth story comes from SNJessen10 on Reddit. We appreciate you for letting us use your story. What could this be? Creepy encounter in San Diego. San Diego is a very haunted place. Last night, my nanny was walking with a couple friends at 2 a.m. near Faneuil Park on the boardwalk of Sail Bay. Her and her friend saw a woman walking near a large tree at the park. The woman had a large black dog that was ribcage height. It was walking next to her, and she was completely bent over, hunched at the waist, while still walking, wearing all black, had a ghastly appearance, and had long black hair dangling at her side towards the ground. The woman turned her head cockeyed at my nanny, while still remaining bent over and passing. She had no face. It was black. My nanny felt bad energy, and also felt cold when passing the woman. My first thought was perhaps it's a homeless person on the drug Trank. It causes users to hunch over at the waist. But my nanny and her friend said no, this was no human. Other relevant information: my nanny does not drink nor do drugs. I'm wondering if maybe there's a possibility of a death in this area. I know the stories of Kate Morgan and Hotel Coronado. This seems very familiar to Kate's appearance, and I'm wondering if something sinister may have taken place here. Also, wondering what the large dog could be who was accompanying the woman. Our fifth story comes from Implement Effective 32 on Reddit. Much obliged for letting us use your story. Shadow people, kids. In my life, I've seen some weird things, heard some weird things like most, but I've only ever encountered shadow people in one place. This occurred when I was a kid and would stay the night at my friend Corey's house. I lived in southwestern Ohio at the time. My friend's house was more in the sticks. His house was practically in the woods with a small creek behind it. Him and I would sleep in the second living room, which was more storage, really. Several times, I can recall waking up in the middle of the night. I get the feeling we weren't alone, and I noticed something darker than the dark moves from behind a table to a stack of boxes. When I looked in the direction, I saw 2 to 3 shadow kids darting back and forth, peeking out from behind whatever objects they were running behind. They never got too close. They always kept some distance. The first time I thought I dreamt it, until the next night it happened again. This time I knew it was real when I saw the same 3 figures start darting around again. I had no flashlight. Cell phones were still years off, so I was stuck there. I tried to wake my friend, but he was in a deep slumber. The next morning, I told him what I'd seen, and he already knew. He just said to try and ignore them and keep on like you're sleeping. I'd end up seeing the 3 figures a few more times there, only in that one room, at very late night. My friend's property must have had some kind of weird energy or something to it. This wasn't the only weird or scary thing to happen while staying there. We also had a night where something growled and smacked a pop-up camper we were staying in. This occurred from 1999 till 2002. Our sixth story comes from FwompFwomp88 on Reddit. We can't thank you enough for letting us use your story. My brother and I had just gotten to my house around 5 p.m. on a weekday. We're both adults. I have a teenage kid who's usually home around that time. I have a pretty big house, so I yelled from the kitchen, "Hey Ash, come eat with us." She had just gotten out of school, so I assumed her grandma had already dropped her off. We both hear a response. Something like, "Okay, coming." I don't remember what she said because we weren't even paying attention that much. Well, 5 to 10 minutes pass, and she never comes. I go check in her room. Nobody is there. I figure she's playing a prank. I check a few other rooms. Nothing. I call her cell, and turns out she's been at her grandmother's house the whole time. My brother and I just look at each other. I asked him if he heard her respond when I called out to her. He nods his head and looked genuinely freaked out. To this day, I have no idea what it was. We are the only house in this new subdivision. Closest neighbor is maybe 200 yards away. My in-laws are deeply religious. They came and blessed the room. Oh, and my daughter has said she had a few weird things happen in her room. Mainly anime figures falling from their shelves and stuff. Said she may have seen a shadowy figure, but she's not sure if she was daydreaming as she had stayed up very late. But just some odd stuff. We never told her about what we heard. Our seventh story comes from Your Typical Gemini on Reddit. It was so kind of you to let us use your story. My Cryptid Encounter. I posted this same story under another account a while back, but that account was deleted. When I was 15 years old, now 37, I was driving on a road trip with my mom to Portland, Oregon. We were driving along I-84, and we had just passed an old cemetery factory outside a small town about an hour away from the Idaho-Oregon border. Out in the distance, I could see a dark-looking figure walking upright near the factory. It looked almost human-like, but was hard to make out as I was observing it from afar. My mom started asking me a question, so I redirected my focus to her, and as we were chatting, I see something out of the corner of my eye flying alongside our SUV. It was an extremely large black-looking bird. Massive beak, talons so long it could pick up a deer, and a wingspan of at least 20 feet. Its feathers were iridescent, while it gazed in through the window, making direct eye contact with me. I stared in horror, as I couldn't help but notice the body of this creature was the same length as our car. We made eye contact for a few seconds. My mom and I both yelled, "What is that?" in disbelief. Before I could really say much more, the creature stuck its neck out and soared into the sky before it seemingly disappeared without a trace, as if an invisible portal opened up and swallowed it. The time was 2 p.m. in the afternoon. The sky was blue. No bad weather in sight, and me? I was a very sober 15-year-old who had just witnessed something I could not identify. I actually grew up birdwatching, I'm going to the Birds of Prey park near my hometown. Before you ask, was it an owl? An eagle? A vulture? It was not. Years later, I was watching a campy show called Missing in Alaska. There was an episode devoted to the Alaskan Thunderbird. After watching this episode, I can say without a doubt, this is what I witnessed. Our 8th story comes from a user who wishes to remain anonymous on Reddit. Much appreciated for letting us use your story. Telling this story makes me sound insane because it's a lot of weird feelings and nothing actually happening, but here we go. Sleepover at a friend's house. We were all around 12 years old. There were 6 of us. Person hosting has told numerous stories about her house being creepy as fuck, and she's pretty sure it's haunted. Things like whispering at night, stuff getting moved around, things getting knocked to the floor. Creepy, but has plausible deniability, because she's 12 and there's also an older brother who has his friends over a lot. She also has a Ouija board she likes to mess around with. Had some creepy stories about it too. We were all hyped to see some ghosts. We're taking turns. Nothing crazy has happened. I haven't taken a turn yet because I've always felt sensitive to that type of stuff and was honestly scared. However, my close friend, E, wanted to try and talk to her dad who had passed, so I agreed to do it with her. 2 other girls joined, the host, A, and a girl who'd been rather emotional that night due to some family issues, K. We were asking a couple things and getting one-word answers. I was having a hard time believing it wasn't A or K moving the planchette. E asked something kind of serious, like, "Are you actually my dad?" or something along those lines. At the time, all of us visibly stiffen, go silent, and take 5 or so seconds to pull our hands away from the board. I'd felt a sharp pain travel up my spine and stop at my neck. This brief moment of time, I felt like I had to mentally harden. I have no way to explain it, other than as I felt the pain travel, I had to brace my mind. We all look at each other, wide-eyed, and Kay bursts into tears, shrieking that her leg was in pain. She runs outside, and the 2 who are not participating go to try and comfort her. E tells us that she felt a pain travel up her spine and stop in her arms, and they were still aching. A said she felt pain travel up her spine and through both arms and legs, but the pain went away shortly. When Kay finally comes back, she also confirms she felt a pain travel through her spine, down to her leg, and it still hurt. I tell them I had only felt the spine pain, but it did not hurt anymore. None of us really knew what to make of it. We were pretty freaked out. We were all on edge the rest of the night. Most of the girls kept trying, but I refused to touch the board again. Nothing happened with the board after this, but we all convinced ourselves we could see a face in the TV. Pretty sure it was a weird reflection actually, but who's to say? But that is the one and only time I have used a Ouija board. Our 9th story comes from Swim Nearby on Reddit. We are beyond grateful for you letting us use your story. Hide and seek with my friend's doppelganger. There were around 7 of us. I once invited my classmates after school to play a game of hide and seek in the college my dad used to teach at. They did not have their own building, so they rented 1 or 2 levels of an office building, so there must be a history to it. There were still college students around, so we decided to play in an area in the far end of the building. We chose the seeker, and then we started the game. Since there is just a limited space where we could play, we decided to all hide together in one room. It was a rarely used computer room at the end of the balcony hallway. The others hid under the tables, and even above them, since every table has a separator for privacy and can keep them hidden. So, me and my classmate Kurt did the same. We both went under the table, and there was another classmate hiding in front of us, facing us, so we could all see each other. Kurt went under the table with me, and was giggling the whole time, curled up, covering his face like in a sulking position. He was weirdly pale. He was brown-skinned. I asked him to quiet down, but he wouldn't listen. I was shaking him, trying to make him stop. He kept giggling until the seeker found all 3 of us. After we got found, we went out and stood up, and there we saw our confused classmate Kurt, confused as to how he was found by the seeker under the table sitting beside me, when he was actually on top of the table, curled up, and was not sitting with me. We were all confused, so we looked under the table where we hid, and there was no one. I asked our classmate hiding in front of us if he saw him hide with me. He confirmed that he saw him giggling in a sulking manner. We both couldn't see his face, but the rest of the appearance was all exactly like the Kurt we know. We asked the seeker how he saw everything, and he said that he never saw anybody on top of the table, but under the table where me and Kurt was. After a moment of realization, we ran out of the room as fast as we could. They went home, and I stayed at the room where my dad and his co-teachers are. After I told them about what happened, they told us that apparently a student from some past college who took their life on the balcony in front of that room where we played in. This was the closest encounter I had with something paranormal. I had a few more, and I always couldn't see their faces, which is better, I guess. It's still so unreal to me. I always think of how something like it is possible. It makes me feel somehow glad that I was not the only one who saw it. Our 10th story comes from Economist number 2159 on Reddit. We sincerely applaud you for letting us use your story. Pass ghost while walking in cemetery. Hello, everyone. This happened while I was living in New Hampshire. My job at the time was very stressful, so to relax, I used to go walking in Mount Calvary Cemetery in Lebanon. To give you a sense of that cemetery, to get to it you have to turn off the main road onto the cemetery road, which winds and up a hill for a bit. Then you come into the cemetery, which is at the top of a very large hill. It was in October, and the foliage was very bright and vibrant. Was enjoying the foliage and the peace and quiet. The path I was walking on is nothing more than a dirt road around the cemetery in the shape of a big circle. I had been there for a while when I came around the corner onto one of the straight areas on the road. I noticed someone walking towards me. Was thinking I did not hear a car come up the hill, so I looked for a car. Nothing. This person was coming from the side of the cemetery, where they would have had to basically climb the steep end of the hill to get there. did not really think anything of it, so kept walking towards this person. As I got closer, I noticed it was an older man with very white hair. He was dressed very well, with khaki pants, a blue button-down shirt, glasses, and really nice tennis shoes and a red ball cap. As I passed him, I said hello. He said hello back, but never looked at me and kept walking. It was at this point that I realized I did not hear the gravel making noise as he came by me. This was maybe 5 to 10 seconds. Where he passed me was on a corner on the path, so I immediately turned around to see if he was still there. Nothing. He just wasn't there anymore. I immediately went looking for him. The cemetery is very open, so you can see people from a long ways off. I looked for an hour for him. I absolutely fine-tooth combed the place. Nothing. He looked so solid, just like another person out for a walk enjoying the peace and quiet. I was in this cemetery a lot and never saw him again. I hope he is at peace. Our 11th story comes from Raoul P93 on Reddit. It means the world to us you let us use your story. I used to see demonic faces in the dark. The main reason I wanted to post this is to get people's opinions about this. As far back as I can remember, up until I was around 15 years old, I'm currently 31 years old, every time I would close my eyes at night in my house, in the darkness of my closed eyes, I would immediately start seeing demonic, scary-looking faces coming at me. What I mean by that is, the faces would manifest from the darkness and zoom past me and through me. And I want to be clear, this is when I was still wide awake. It would happen as soon as I closed my eyes and stop as soon as I opened them. It happened so often that it was my normal, and I actually thought it was normal and thought nothing of it other than that it was annoying. A lot of other creepy stuff happened in that house, poltergeist type stuff, but this post is not about that. It pretty much stopped after we moved out of that house. The weird thing is that recently, my brother and I were talking about living in that house, and I came to find out that he used to see those faces too. There was one face in particular that I recognized that he described. It's the face of some demonic-looking, pissed-off old lady that would always appear, looking away, and would turn around, open her mouth like in a scream, and go towards me, clawing at my face. I was extremely shocked when he told me he used to see the same thing. Also recently, my mom came to visit me for a weekend. I live in Portland, she lives in LA. We had a conversation about my childhood and her traumatic upbringing. The night after she left, for the first time in like 15 years, I saw the faces again. I was more amazed than anything. I hadn't seen them in so long. That was like 8 months ago, and I haven't seen them again since that night. I think somehow, seeing those faces is tied to my mom. My mom's side of the family is full of trauma, and I think even a bit of voodoo, witchcraft type stuff. The family is Christian Catholic on the surface, but I know that there is a dark history. My main question is, what was that? What type of thing can cause demonic, scary faces to flow towards you and through you when you close your eyes? What do you guys all think? Does anyone have a similar experience? Our 12th and final story for the night comes from Professional Ball 502 on Reddit. We are blown away by your kindness for letting us use your story. It didn't happen directly to me, but it happened to my dad when I was a toddler. My parents' bedroom and mine are connected by a long hallway. You could see directly into one other room just by staring at the door of the other. So we, being kids, my brothers and me, shared the same room. Our parents arranged their bed so they could lay in their bed and easily look across the hallway into our room. So, one night, my dad stares into our room from his, and he noticed that from inside our room, on the top side of the door frame, some ugly, dark face, upside down like a lizard on the wall, was peeping from our room, staring back at my dad across the hallway. He, being skeptic, thought he was just seeing stuff, until my mom asked, "Did you just see that thing from the kids' room?" My dad instantly sprinted into our room, only to find nothing there. That only happened that one time, as far as I know.
As the night gets longer and the darkness creeps in, with the eerie silence broken only by whispering wind, come gather round the fire, the flickering flames, and hear the tales of the spooky and the strange. A chill up your back, a shiver up your spine. You'll be haunted by the things that you find. Legends will unfold and stories will be told at the scale